Well, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Unpublic with Citizen Stewart, where we learn in peace, even though sometimes we choose violence in the morning. Today, my guest is Rashad Turner from the Minnesota Parents Union, leader of the Minnesota Parents Union, one of my long-term brothers who keeps me connected to the education issues that take place here and the politics that take place here in the state of Minnesota. I want to say that this, for me, is one of those good shows where I get to come back to see what is happening in my home state, because sometimes it gets so frustrating and annoying with the level of polite racism in my state that I have to turn away for a while and just unplug before I go crazy. I did enough of my years of fighting and engaging with the Minneapolis Public Schools, the St. Paul Public Schools, the teachers unions of Minnesota, the what I call the new Jane Crow system of people in Minnesota, and had to unplug before I lost my sanity. Have to plug back in though, because the lives of our children are important. And I can't be talking about education nationally and everywhere else and not pay attention to what's going on in my backyard. Today, I want to talk a little bit, it's the day after a year anniversary of George Floyd. And since the death of George Floyd, the whole world paid attention to the Twin Cities and to Minnesota for a hot minute. I think a lot of people felt a bit of catharsis when we had a verdict that looked like justice. But what much of the world doesn't know is that there were George Floyds before George Floyd that you don't know their names in Minnesota, and that there will be more in Minnesota, and that nothing material has really changed with the police or with the teachers or with the schools or with the world-class disparities that we have with people of color. Minnesota, as I have said and mentioned here before, this is always my setup whenever we're going to talk about my home state, is a place where it tops the list of everything from best place to live, best place to raise a family, best place to have healthcare, best place to work, more theater seats per capita than New York, more Fortune 500 companies per capita than almost anywhere in the country. If you are a part of the bourgeois class in Minnesota, you could walk out of a job at General Mills and walk over to a job at Cargill or to 3M or to Medtronic. We have a healthy population of companies and economic opportunities in this state. And all of that turns on its head when you talk about people of color and Black people, because everything that I just said into the positive goes the other direction when you look at our outcomes for people of color, our home ownership, our income, jobs, wealth creation, schools, education, outcomes in math, reading, science, whatever. Numbers go the other direction. Mississippi is cleaning the floor with us in terms of, like, for instance, acquisition of literacy for young Black people, right? So here we are, Jim Crow of the North, new Jane Crow running our schools and our education system. Not a better person I can think of to help us make sense of it today than Rashad Turner. Welcome, brother.
Hey, good morning, brother. I'm glad you have me on. Just even listening, the first part of what you were saying, it was all nice. All right. Then when you get to our people, just even listening to that, and I know it's only 9 o'clock here in Minnesota, but it just gets me pissed off. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just having to know that, everybody thinks of Minnesota as this Minnesota nice, but I want folks to know that when it comes to education here, we have a system or systems, the establishment, the teachers unions, who are sick and suffering from the socially transmitted disease of racism. And we have to turn the volume up all the way on these people. So I'm glad to be here with you. I hope folks are tuning in. Let's turn up on them, citizen.
Early in the morning, let's get it started like right away. Listen, I feel like when we want to talk about Minnesota and our state, it's only to give people an example where it might be the same where you live. You might be living in Connecticut or Vermont and say, you know what, that's just like us here in Vermont. Y'all got the same thing we got going on. But I also like to get specific, because if I just, it would almost, I would feel like I was throwing up if I just tried to throw everything out at once. It's just so much. Mm-hmm. We are so racist in so many ways. It's so crazy. So it's fun to drill down on just one case of racism. So I like to just drill down to one school, one lesson, one thing. You've posted You've posted this young mother's story, or I actually don't know if she's a mother. You're going to tell us more about the story.
Yeah.
But there's this former student of Lake Harriet Community School. So for people who are not from here, Lake Harriet Community School is one of the Tony schools of Minneapolis. It's in an enclave part of Minneapolis that is surrounded by, kind of insufferable white liberals who do yoga and drink the great coffee and all that shit. Their houses are expensive.
Oat milk is the new thing.
Yeah, they do the whole oat milk thing. They voted for Obama and whatnot. They couldn't be more insufferable and intolerant. This school actually in a city that has a school system that is overwhelmingly kids of color and overwhelmingly kids in poverty. This school, for some weird reason, just doesn't happen to have those same stats. I think I don't want to misstate the stats, but it's like 4 or 5 or 6% poverty or, something low like that of Black kids and students and whatnot in a district that's very diverse and whatnot. It also happens to be the school where, we'll get more into it. Tell me about what this former student, Black student of this school posted on TikTok. We have it up right now on your Facebook. Tell me more about this story.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to be careful with this, right? Because I had an opportunity to talk to this former student last night about 9 p.m. We talked for about a half an hour. And I'll say, Chris, at the end of this conversation, the history and the pattern of racism, of our babies being treated like crap in Minneapolis public schools was very clear. Now, I posted, this young person's TikTok, and I felt like folks were just ignoring it, right? It was George Floyd Day yesterday. Rest in peace, George Floyd. But I got to tell folks, if we don't focus on what's happening in our education system, and it's much for, it goes beyond illiteracy, right? The harm, our children are suffering in these schools. And I guarantee Minnesota, I guarantee you wherever you're at, if you ain't focusing on education justice, you'll be focusing on police reform and criminal justice reform forever. Because those cops, the people they're dealing with, they're all probably going to schools that sucked, or they graduated from schools that sucked. But let me zoom in about this young person. If you could pull that back up, Chris. So they posted on their TikTok. I guess I don't use TikTok, right? My daughter does. And
you got to get on the TikTok.
I haven't picked it up yet. I ain't even gonna lie.
You got to get on the TikTok.
I had to let them know last night, now I found your TikTok and then I couldn't find it again, but I'll get a TikTok soon. But they posted on their TikTok, there was some challenge or something going on around experiences in middle school dealing with racist teachers or dealing with racism. This young person here, they started to, think back to their middle school experience. And at the same time that they were thinking back to their middle school experience, they had several of their friends reaching out to them to say, hey, don't you remember when Miss Hanson, I don't know if you can see her picture there, but Miss Hanson did this to you. And then they went ahead and posted it on TikTok. And what they said last night was when they posted it, they got a lot of love, got a lot of support, but then they also got a lot of hate from former students who didn't look like them, but who had this affinity or affiliation to Miss Hanson. So I'll tell you, at the end of that conversation, it wasn't just the one story of this, teacher who thinks they're so supreme, saying that, Black kids aren't as smart as white kids, and that this child here was proving that simply because they were talking with a friend in class. Because they were talking with a friend in class, Chris. Now, this former student, this happened 8 years ago, right? Imagine the fact that this happened 8 years ago, and this student's still so traumatized that 8 years later, they're still dealing with the wickedness from this teacher. And what I mean by that is students in the teacher's class today, right, this week, have reported to this young person that Miss Hanson is in class talking about, oh, well, that was a troubled child.
Wow.
Right? And
Really?
students are, I guess all of the youngsters are on TikTok because they're going wild with this one, right?
Yeah,
More and more
yeah.
students stepping up. I want to even tell you this story right here, right? Because when I say, sick and suffering from that socially transmitted disease of racism, I'm going to give you another example, okay? Another student who was Miss Hanson's student a couple of years ago reported that Miss Hanson would, and this is a young Black girl, just so I'm clear, right? We can guess that these ain't white students that we're talking about, but there even are some white students that I'll share about shortly. But this young Black girl in Miss Hanson's class would always be harassed, treated poorly every time she did something with her hair. So if she restyled her hair, Miss Hanson had some bullshit to say. If she cut her hair, Miss Hanson had something to say, right? On top of that, that same student they were doing a poetry contest, all right? And I'm going to give you enough details, but not so much, because it's time to drop the hammer on Minneapolis Public Schools. I don't know if you've seen our letter that we sent to the Department of Ed, sent to OCR, sent to the Commissioner of Human Rights, but it's time to drop the hammer on Minneapolis Public Schools, because we're talking about Lake Harriet, but Minneapolis Public Schools, as you know, Chris, has a history and a pattern of this type of shit happening to our children. So let me get back to the young Black girl and her hair, right? And you've heard about hair stories in school. If you remember the young girl, Journey, who got her hair chopped off by the school, right? So this one didn't go to that point, but it harmed and damaged this young child. To have Miss Hanson talking shit about her hair every time. But let me get to the poetry contest. Lake Harriet's having a poetry contest. Said young Black lady student, young Black girl, wanted to do a poem, Chris. You know what Miss Hanson said to her? And let me back up. The poem was about her experience as a young Black girl. That's what she wanted to do her poem about. Miss Hanson says to her, and here, let me pull out my notes so I get the exact quote from Miss Hanson. Miss Hanson says, "No one would want to hear that, and I'm protecting you because kids wouldn't understand it or enjoy it, so don't do it."
Poem about yourself.
Poem about yourself and your experience as a Black person. No one will want to hear it.
Wow, so that must be like what they mean when they talk about culturally relevant pedagogy.
Right?
Right? Yeah. So
that's what more money gets us, Chris. Right?
Wow.
More money gets you more bad apples being placed in our schools in front of our children, damaging them for the rest of their lives. You hear me say this all the time. Teachers unions kill our children's hopes and dreams, right? We're going to have a clear example with this situation right here, because they're going to come out and try to protect this lady, right? We're already 10 steps ahead of them. Okay. But we're going to be able to see them protecting bad apples.
So Lake Harriet, people should know, is a school that people covet locally, like to get into Lake Harriet. There's people that try and move in the neighborhood to get into that school. If you can't afford to buy one of the houses, which are stupidly priced near that school, like the dumbest little A-frame house will cost you what a decent sized house somewhere else will cost you in that neighborhood. And people do it, number one, because it's, they want to be living the lifestyle, and part of the lifestyle of that area is the schools. And Lake Harriet has, like, I just looked it up, 2.6 Black students in a district that has 33%, is a third Black, and they only have 2.6. One of the nation's leading experts on public school integration, who is right now pushing a case that would punish Black schools for not attracting white students. Get your mind around this. Will punish our homegrown Black and brown charter schools for not having white students. The guy who is pushing that had his kids in this school that only has 2.6% white or Black kids in a district that is a third Black, right? So this is the type of liberal BS that we have to deal with locally. The parents that come out of that school and the teachers in that school are anti-choice, anti-charter, anti-everything else.
Right.
But yet they like to run this little enclave school for their good white kids in the city to like be in an enclave. Like it's an opportunity hoarding school is what it is. But years ago, and I just want to bring this up to add to what you're saying, Rashad, as historical knowledge about that school.
Please do.
Years ago, we forced that school and 2 others to take more Black students from Minnesota or Minneapolis's north side neighborhoods. So we started a program that was going to allow kids that were in redlined areas of the city to go to some of the best schools within the city. We're going to offer them seats in the best cities. The parents at that school and the parents at Burroughs, another school just like it, fought it like hell. They hated it, that they didn't want to have anything to do with it. So we forced it. As a board, we made it happen. And it was going to be something real small, Rashad, like 15, 16 kids that were going to be coming to that school. When I tell you that they didn't want to pay for the bus to bring that school, to bring those kids to the school, that those kids actually missed breakfast every morning until spring, until March, from first day of school until March, because they only wanted to give them one bus and it was taking up to an hour and a half bus ride to go 3 miles just from the north side to that school. And they were suspending kids off of the bus because they were having behavior problems because it was so long of a ride. Yeah. And they were missing breakfast every morning. And then when they got in the building, they were suspending them. So we hired a third-party investigator. The district did, and I can send you this report. I'm gonna send you.
Please do, because we're trying to do something similar, and we're going through the same pushback.
Give you a report. I'm giving it to you. And the report found, what the report concluded was it wasn't safe for the Black kids to be there. Pull them out right now. That's what the third-party report said. The adults in the building don't want them there. Didn't want this to happen. So
what year was that, Chris? What year was that report?
That would have been, I'll have to guess. I would say it was maybe 2009, 10.
So just imagine, Chris.
Yeah.
In 2009, 2010, right? What has the district done since then to improve things for students of color at Lake Harriet? It doesn't sound like they've done anything. It sounds like they've turned a blind eye to that report, a deaf ear to the voices of children and parents. So it's like, I've reached a point here, Chris, and I hope folks across the country who are watching, folks in Minnesota especially, like, we've reached a point where there's no other option but to attack the dollars, right? We are getting ready to level up our boycott of Minneapolis public schools and go for the strike, right? There's no time to keep messing around in systems that are barbaric, right? Mm-hmm. There's no time for that. We're losing children every day who can't read, who don't get the attention they need. And now you're telling me, hey, well, there was a report that said we got to get our babies out of there. And I'm not surprised by that.
Let me tell you this too. It gets worse. You know what they did with the Somali students that were on that bus? They did something I had never seen in a public school district before. They made them waive their rights to ESL support because they said, we don't offer that at this school. So if you're going to choose to get on this bus and come to this school, you have to waive your federally protected rights to language support at that school. So the Somali parents actually literally waived their rights to ESL supports because the school wasn't going to provide them nothing else, nothing additional that they thought they needed. Right. What they were basically trying to do was make it really hard for you to want to pick them and want to come there.
Yeah. I mean, you're speaking to the history and the pattern, Chris, right? I mean, when we, one thing that's been frustrating me lately is that I feel like our people have been tricked a little bit, right? There's been this narrative out there over these past years and probably longer than that. But since I've been on, this ed reform stuff, there's been this narrative that says, hey, you poor Black and brown parents, you just share your stories and tug at those heartstrings and everything's going to change, right? That's wrong. It's not doing anything to tug at their heartstrings. So we have to escalate things, right? It's not enough to just say, hey, well, my dad was killed when I was 2, blah, blah. Like, Okay. It might connect with folks, but it's not changing policy. It's not getting these racist ass teachers out of the classroom. So what do we have to do? We have to hit them in the pockets. We have to bring this thing to the courts if need be, right? I mean, what you're describing again is that history and pattern. And it's like same thing we talked about in our letter to the Department of Ed, to the Commissioner of Human Rights, to the Office of Civil Rights at the federal level. Right? Something needs to happen now. And we can't wait on the system. So again, what we're doing in Minneapolis, and I would encourage you folks all across the country, think about a boycott. Think about what that strike looks like, right? When we think about Minneapolis public schools, and I'm gonna get into some numbers here a little bit, but we think about Minneapolis public schools, right? If we were to have 1,000 children stay home from September through that October attendance count, Minneapolis Public Schools stands to lose millions of dollars in compensatory funding that they could never get back. Right? So if we're talking about like, hey, we got to make some change, no one gives a shit about our stories. That's obvious. For all of the stories that we've told, that all of the times we've poured out our hearts, right? That doesn't work with these malignant narcissists, right? That's not the strategy anymore. So it's like now, and I know Ray is always correcting you on 8 Black Hands when you say punch in the mouth. You know what I mean? So Ray, I don't mean, I might, but I'm just playing. But we got to punch him in the mouth, right? We have to hit him where it hurts. Okay. And that's my message to our folks here in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities, across this state. It's my message to everybody around the country. If you are a parent, what are we waiting for?
Well, this is I want to like just put a fine point on what you just said. Minneapolis Public Schools is not a big district. So it's not like it's not huge. I want to say it's 35, 36, 37,000 kids, right? It's not that much. The majority of those kids are kids of color. So I think white students are maybe 25%. So the majority is like 2/3. But for black students bring in about, at just roughly, probably about $176 million a year, right? So you just said 1,000. If 1,000 of them stayed home, right? But that would only be 1/10 of their real, 1/11 of their real power, right?
True.
So it could take a lot of money off, but in total, black students are worth $176 million to this school district. This school district where the majority of the teachers drive in from the suburbs and don't live in the communities where they're teaching.
Right.
The majority of the teachers are white. The majority of the teachers are driving in from places that are red districts coming into the cities, just like our police officers do, to teach and police the Negroes, right? And to sit in classrooms and tell the Negroes, you can't tell a poem about your own experience. You can't wear your hair in a way that I'm not going to ridicule or talk about. You can't get mad at me if I'm going to allow the white kids to over exaggerate the word nigger when we read Tom Sawyer or whatever. Right.
And I was telling you that before the show, Chris. Let me say it to your audience. So Miss Hanson at Lake Harriet thinks that the use of the word nigger is just so funny. So it was also reported last night that, she basically forced 2 white students to use the N-word while they're reading To Kill a Mockingbird. Those white students told her, we do not feel comfortable saying that. We don't feel like anyone should be saying it, and we don't want to say it. And she said, no, you're going to say it. It's a part of the book. After these 2 kids, white kids said the N-word, you want to know what Miss Hanson did? She laughed.
Wow.
That was her response, was to laugh. And
I just want to say to people, Miss Hanson is Minnesota.
Right. I mean,
Miss Hanson is Minnesota. I'm glad you brought this up.
The worst of Minnesota.
The worst of Minnesota, because we do have the best of Minnesota. But I don't want to talk about that right now. Yeah. Well, definitely, like you said, that what do you call it? The socially
transmitted disease of racism.
The socially transmitted disease of racism. Sometimes diseases need a carrier. And the way that you carry something into the Minneapolis, an urban area like Minneapolis is, in suburban white women. That's how you carry it into, that's the carrier into our classrooms. That's how you deliver it. That's how you get it to a Black child in Minneapolis.
Oh,
You
yeah.
bring it in a white woman from the suburbs who's not going to have to listen to you or listen to your complaints. So what are y'all going to do about this? What's the step here? What's the action steps?
So I'm gonna be a little quiet on these action steps, right?
Okay.
Just because, like I said, what I heard last night, Chris, what was something that you know, I'm a dad, right? I have a middle school, a 13-year-old daughter. Love her to death. I'd die for her, right? And to hear what some of these other children were going through, some of them who are her age, some of them who are a little bit older now, it pissed me off to say the least, right? And it's like, what are we going to do? I think there's a lot of room to, you know, I said punch them in the mouth, but punch them in the pockets, punch them in the budget, right? There's youngsters that are still going through this, a bunch of them, a high enough number for a class action lawsuit. There's enough folks who have stories to share. But again, Chris, it's not just, oh, let's share the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get, you know, some higher ups involved. I don't know if you heard, but I was recently selected to the board of directors for the ACLU of Minnesota. And one of the questions that I've been sort of tossing around, like, do our children, you know, give up their rights when they're in public schools? Like, do they not have a 14th Amendment right in there? Do they not have the protections of the First and the 14th, equal protection under the law? And some of that stuff is, you know, it's above my pay grade. So we got to get the right people in there. But I would say you're going to continue to hear about this story. There will be more developments. There's local journalists on it. We're hoping to do a press conference sometime this week. But again, keep in mind that there's a lot of children who have been impacted, who are being impacted. So we got to be careful, right? But we are going to, you know, you've always known my frustration with Minneapolis public schools. And people sometimes say, oh, Rashad, you're tripping. Just give them some time, right?
Give them some time.
Give them some time. They're working on this or they're working on that, right? Time's up, Minneapolis public schools. So the part I will say is that as we've been working on leveling up our boycott, this right here, about 10 calls over the past 24 hours. Oh, this is what you mean. This is why you're saying we should boycott, right? And going back to that report you were talking about, Chris, it's interesting that that's what the report found, right? Because I remember some years ago when I was working in White Bear Lake area schools, you get these Black families that would come out there and they would say, Mr. Turner, we're trying to get away from this gang violence or this activity over in St. Paul or over in Minneapolis. And I would tell them like, hey, you're going to be in different type of violence out here, right? It's not the Bloods or the Crips in the neighborhood that you're worried about out here.
That's right.
It's what that experience is like every day in a classroom where our kids aren't welcome, right? Yeah. And they know that they're not welcome. Chris, you know this. I mean, you've been in several schools and here and all across the country. Our children know right away who's got love for them and who doesn't.
Yeah, White Bear Lake is for people listening and watching, is a suburb where for a long period of time, the Black students, they had a problem that nobody was detecting. The problem was that between middle school and ninth grade, a whole bunch of their Black males were just exiting. Like you would have this big number of, not big number, but you had a sizable number of Black males in middle school, and then at ninth grade, that number shrunk, and nobody ever said, "Well, wait a second, what's going on?" What happened was they were off-roading them into alternative schools because they knew they couldn't educate them, and they were they were counseling them out of the system into an alternative system. I had a person who was working with Black male students in that district call me to come and look at one classroom. And I've told this story before. Mr. Pye, I'll never forget his classroom. Mr. Pye had gamified his entire classroom. It took the books out, all the books, and created computer stations, handheld gaming systems, whatever. He had these games that kids were doing like algebra over the holidays and were still logging in to do it because the games were so fun. And the kids showed me the game and I couldn't play because it was doing all these formulas and whatever. And I was like, damn, this dude has got these kids doing complex formulas and whatever. He's really, and the woman who brought me there said, Chris, the reason I want you to see this is because I'm trying to get all my Black boys in this district into that classroom because it's one of the classrooms where they care. But the problem was the teachers after him didn't want to do the same stuff the next year in the next grades. So they hated him. And even his union started attacking him for doing this weird little classroom he was doing because the other teachers around him, the Miss Hansons, didn't want to be entertainers or gamifying or any of that stuff. And they attacked him. They actually literally attacked the dude who was doing the best with the Black students in the district. I'll ask you, what do you think the enemies are going to say about your efforts now? And by enemies, we know who they are politically.
Yeah, you know what? I don't even care, Chris. Well, I'm so laser focused. Our team is so laser focused that those folks are irrelevant. You know what I mean? They take their shots. They talk their shit on Twitter. It doesn't do anything, right? Because the fact of the matter is, like, the parents that we partner with, they're impacted by the disparities, right? They're not impacted by what, you know, folks are saying on Twitter. Hell, they don't even see my tweets, right? So it's like, I don't care. We don't care, because what's happening in Minnesota, and I would say, like, shout out to Nikema Levy Armstrong for turning things up in the streets around criminal justice, because that energy has flowed over into this education space, right? So there's more awareness. There's more parents getting the information, the tools that we need to go out here and fight this fight. And I'll tell you, right, a couple of weeks ago, we crashed an Education Minnesota rally, teachers union up here, the most barbaric group of union leaders probably in this country. We crashed their rally. You know what they did? And when I say crash, there were like 10 of us, even a couple of children. We wanted to have a couple of minutes to let people know what the real deal around Education Minnesota and teachers unions were. When we got there, came out with the bullhorn, went to walk up to the stage. You know what they did, Chris? They sent all of their attack dogs straight to us. They tried to put banners over us. They tried to drown us out. And imagine 10 of us, Chris, 10 of us versus 400 of them. And we shut that shit down. And you know what they tried to do after? They wanted to paint me out as this violent Black man, while at the same time they're saying Black Lives Matter and all of this other crap. So it's like, I believe that our opponents, the opposition, they're on the ropes. And they've never, ever, at least in Minnesota, had an organization like Minnesota Parent Union that does not give a crap what folks think as far as our level of boldness or how radical we are, right? We need to do it a different way, and that's how we do it, right? And so it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't even want to give some of these chumps any airtime on here, because it's like they're bored, right? I mean, they are defending the indefensible, right? And that's the piece where it's like, yeah, sometimes I'll wake up. It's usually Fridays, man. Usually when I wake up on Fridays, I just wake up in a mood, feeling some type of way, and I'll let people have it for a little bit, right? But it's like I tell some of my friends, like, hey, people get out there, they want to distract us, right? And the one thing I'll say is, as long as they're focused on my Black ass, they're not going to see every other parent who's punching them in the budget all across this state. So it's like, you know, if I was afraid of some of these folks physically, then it might be different, right?
I saw the tape of you all going to that rally, and I saw them like coming up and trying to block you from even moving any direction. And whoever filming, look how old I am, whoever had the phone, right? Because there ain't no film anymore. I got to catch myself sometimes. Whoever had the Kodak, you know, I saw them like getting kind of physical, like getting in their way. And I thought to myself, see, one of these dudes is like, they're not going to understand what this is about. right? Because you're not going to touch me, right?
Exactly.
Like you could try and block my movement or whatnot, but if I'm moving forward and you get exactly in my way,
Yeah.
you know.
And here's the thing I told him, Chris, right? Folks know I went to cop school, right? My dad got killed when I was younger. I grew up wanting to be a cop, keep other kids' parents from getting killed, right? So when I was in the police academy, you learn all of the laws. You know the statutes. So I told somebody, I said, hey, just how you just described, if I am moving forward, you cannot impede my progress, right? You can't impede my forward movement. You could say that's a 5th degree assault, right? And the thing I was trying to explain to some of these cowards out there, first of all, yeah, don't touch me, right? I grew up in Frogtown. None of these chumps have come into Frogtown and put their hands on anybody over there. I mean, if they put their hands on me, they might get in trouble from folks, right? But the message I was trying to send to these folks was just like, why doesn't Edmund want us to speak, right? I mean, we literally had to shut this whole thing down because they wouldn't give us 2 minutes, Chris. 2 minutes. And for about 25 or 30 minutes, they had banners in our face. This white guy hit me in the nose. And I always say, I crack it. You know, my nose is flat, right? So if you can touch my nose with the sign, you're way too close, right? That was a joke on I can joke on myself, right? But it's like all of the physical stuff. I mean, that was ridiculous. But the 10 of us that showed up and did that, it meant a lot, right? It meant a lot for people to be able to see, like, hey, we can use our voices, right? We don't have to respond in the same way that these folks who are, you know, sick and suffering responding to us, right? We kept our calm. We toed the line. They still tried to paint us out to be monsters out there. They put out their one video of me saying, you know, Negro, as if that was just like,
yeah, you're not supposed to say that. That's a bad word.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay. Well, let's let them put all of their film out. Now I'm sounding like you. Put all of their video out, and they can paint us however they want to.
Bro, it's not even video.
We'll drop the real videos, and folks got to see, like, yeah, this was their behavior, right? It wasn't about the violent, angry black man out there doing all of this crazy stuff, but that's their narrative, the same narrative from the folks who are supposed to be loving our children in schools. It is not possible, right? I mean, it blows my mind to think that these same folks who are out there putting their hands on us, cussing us out, telling us to shut up, telling us to leave, putting flyers and banners in our face, they're in the classrooms with our children. All right. And a long time ago, Chris, you asked me something. You asked me, did I think we need teachers unions? Right. I said a long time ago, because it feels like it was a long time ago. I'm at the point now where it's just like we are working with so many teachers, and that number has increased tremendously over this past 6 months. We're working with so many teachers, and now our call to teachers is, hey, stop paying those dues. Right. Stop paying those
to good
dues.
Teachers, to conscious teachers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's no way, you know, one last thing. I know you want to get back to Minneapolis Public Schools, but one last thing, right? After they, you know, shut down their rally, started playing music, our team that was out there, we spent 45 minutes talking to people who were at the rally. They were asking us questions. We got to get our information out there. We talked about the Page Amendment, talked about education savings accounts, and had some great conversations. So at the end of the day, right, back to your question of the opposition, they're not there. They're going to have to literally kill me for me to stop doing this.
Well, now don't say that, because, you know, shit, I don't put nothing past America.
Oh, I don't either.
Know, yeah, especially when money's involved.
My red counties will handle them.
Yeah. Well, listen, you know, it's not that I want to get back to Minneapolis Public Schools, but I always do want to drill home the point of why we care. Like, no matter what we're involved in every day, no matter what we're involved in, especially if we are talking about our children, you have to ask the question why we care, because people are they're going to assign motives to us that try to eliminate or erase our real justice issues.
Right.
You know, you're only doing this because you're being paid to do it. You're only doing this because you have some vested interest in the outcome that goes beyond just the obvious. I'm only bringing up, like, I like to go back to smart, simple, basic points. the children of Minneapolis public schools, the Black children of Minneapolis public schools can't read.
Right.
After years of changing their curriculum multiple times over and continuously doing a better job of picking the wrong curriculum each time.
Every
like
time.
In the last decade, they have made the wrong choice on a curriculum multiple times, on a reading program multiple times. And by the wrong choice is what I mean. I mean, experts in the field would never tell you to pick the one you picked because it's either ineffective or racist or culturally stupid to pick that one that you picked. That's what Minneapolis has done over the last decade. Rinse, wash, repeat multiple times. Stupid board, ineffective and unconcerned about academics in the superintendency office, right? Someone asleep at the wheel in curriculum and instruction department, and they picked the wrong program. And these numbers are the most simple, basic thing. Like, let's keep it plain for our people. Your children are never going to upset those statistics we talked about earlier in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where white folks own everything and have all the best jobs and all the best houses and get all the best of everything, best lakes, best bike trails, best everything in the city that you live in. And Black folks, like it's 1850 or 1950, get the second hand of everything and get the worst of all the statistics. That shit is never going to change as long as this very simple chart right here stays the same. Right. Which this chart is telling you. This chart is saying, what's it saying? It's saying something like only less than a quarter of the students are reading proficient, less than a quarter of the Black students. Now, what's interesting about this, and I can cut this for you again, this includes the non-poor Blacks. So if I were to cut this again just for the poor males, the numbers will get even worse. I mean, the poor Black students, the numbers will get worse. And then if I cut it down to just Black males, it would get even worse, right? We had a school, Minneapolis Public Schools. I'm not going to pull it up and shame them in this situation. They had 11% proficiency, and not a single of the proficient tested students was a boy, right? So get your mind around that. What's that mean for the future? Ask yourself the real questions. Do you care about a Black future? Do you care about a Black future, or do you care about Miss Hanson's feelings? Because if you care about Miss Hanson's feelings, you're going to stay on the bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to stay on that Minnesota nice bullshit. Minnesota nice is killing our asses. It is putting us right in the ground, right? You walk around caring about George Floyd and protesting in the streets and rioting and tearing. You should have burned down the schools. That's what you should have burned down. You should have left Target the fuck alone, right? Honestly, I'm so pissed off with people constantly, the liberal class of Minneapolis constantly missing the point. You are doing damage to Black children. You're diminishing the Black mind in your classrooms every single day. Yet you're out here marching with the teachers and the teachers unions as if they're our allies. And then you're burning and looting Target, and nobody can get damn formula and baby diapers the next day. You should have burned down the schools. You would have been doing a better service to the Black community of Minneapolis if you would have done that. I know that's the wrong thing to say for some, but it is what it is.
I remember back during that time. I mean, it was, fires in the streets, and I want to get people to focus on the fires that were occurring in our schools. So, I mean, it's one of those things like in Minnesota, a question I always have for folks is like, how do you hate the police union, but you love the teachers union? Right. I mean, that's something to really just sort of, cogitate, right? Think deeply about, why do you hate the police union, but you love teachers unions? I mean, it just boggles my mind, man. I mean, that some of these same folks who get out there and they march, they've got the signs, all of that stuff. But then they get to school on Monday and it's like, well, who cares about Lil Rashad, right? Who cares about Lil Andrea? And that's the thing where it's just like, if you're not ready, right? People talk about a revolution, right? And I listen to old Malcolm X stuff all the time. And I ain't gonna get all Malcolm right here, but just look up what Malcolm said about a revolution. And then you ask yourself, and I'm talking about folks on our side, right? Do you really think that Jane Crow and the rest of their crew is really about a revolution? Or are they more about doing everything they can to keep us stuck with the assumption that, you know, we as a people will continue to be uninformed, right? That's what I think they bet on, Chris. Like they bet on us not getting the information because they know how hard they've made it to access, right? But it's like, it's up to us, man. We ain't, you know, waiting for Superman or whatever the heck that movie was. Like, if it's going to happen, it's going to be because we made it happen as parents, as families working together, because we know, man, it's the worst up here. I mean, it is the worst. I can tell you that, you know, if you are in the education advocacy space, I've heard before that, like, well, Minnesota is the place where ideas go to die. Right? Well, no, it's actually the place where our children are going to continue to die if folks don't step up. And again, we're not waiting for kumbaya, right? We have a coalition of the willing that is ready to take action every opportunity we get, while staying laser focused on making sure that whether it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that data you put up there, Chris, it's not the same, right? That the experience of Black, brown, indigenous children in our schools here in Minnesota is not the same.
I mean, you know, what's so crazy about that, though, is that data was better 10 years ago.
Right.
It was slightly better 10 years before that. So we're not even going the right direction. Like, we're going the wrong direction. So the same school district that we're talking about, this same school district was on the cutting edge of integration in the 1970s. They were on the cutting edge of things like magnet schools and, you know, desegregation, all that. They were on the cutting edge of new types of schools and whatever. This isn't a backwards school system. This is a school system that has always been well-resourced, has a lot of money. Like, there are southern cities and districts that would kill for our budget. Exactly. They would kill for our budget and our resources and still can't get the job done. And it's not trending the right direction. It's trending the wrong direction, because that's the level, the low expectations that people in this state have for Black students, right? They actually have they actually think it's natural. It's the natural. You mentioned Malcolm X on Revolution. And this is why I love talking to you, Rashad. Because people should go back and read it for themselves. But he just basically said there's a difference between a Negro revolution and a Black revolution. And he goes into detail about the difference between the two. Rashad, you're leading a Black revolution versus a Negro revolution. But we do have a Negro revolution, too, in Minnesota.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the ones that found out that they were Black when they got to college.
Right.
You know what I mean? The funniest shit at the rally from Edmond, and I don't know why I'm swearing so much today, but the funniest thing from the rally, and you probably saw the video where I had said Negro. This black woman tried to say to me, like, what did she say? Like, oh, you must not understand critical race analysis. I said, man, you know, I've gotten all of the analysis I need being inside of these schools that treated me like a crap as a kid, living in a impoverished neighborhood and living every day as a Black man in a state that is one of the worst states for Black people, right? So it's just like, you do have this Negro revolution, and that person really didn't even get what I was saying. I think I had to spell it out to her because I was really saying like Knee, like Negro, right? But you do have this group of woke folks, right? And I know that, you know, both sides of the political aisle have been using this woke thing, but I'm just saying it how I'm meaning to say it, right? You got these folks that are woke, that they look like us. They might have went to, you know, private university, but that's when they found out they were Black. They didn't have to deal with anything because they didn't want to be Black till now, right? So that's what we're dealing with, are folks who have woke up in college. They read a couple of books. They got their degree. They thought that they made it. But I'll say this to folks who are fighting this fight. These people have a huge information gap, right? They are sheep. They're following. They're not leaders. So we have to be leaders, right? They don't know our experience. They read a book. So it's like that opposition. I mean, something that was just like, just sad to see, right? This was sad to see. right?
Mhm.
We go to that Education Minnesota rally, and one of my uncles was with me, right? I sort of like, I tricked him into coming. He wanted to come, but he didn't know what we were walking into, right? We get there and he says, so the red shirts are the opposition? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, we're outnumbered. And I kind of didn't look back at him, but I heard what he said. I didn't want him to get nervous, right? He was like, man, there's all of these white people out here. And I said, yeah, they ain't going to do nothing to us. But his comment, observation that there were all of these white people out there. I mean, Education Minnesota is 94% white, 90% white women, right? Why on earth were the 4 black and brown people, the 4 total that were there, why were they their attack dogs? We went up there to disrupt a white woman named Denise Specht, who is the head of Education Minnesota, but yet all of the black and brown people came to save their master. Right? That
better tell it.
I was embarrassed to be black that day.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that was embarrassing. And if you we're gonna put out more of the videos, right? We ain't done with them yet. We're gonna knock them down. They're on the ropes. We got to knock them out. We're gonna put out more of the videos. And in one of the videos, you'll see the woman that I said was a Negro. You will see her come from like way back out of the crowd, man, running up to the stage to block us. And she followed me the whole time. And you know what they wanted to say at the end? Oh, we were just following him and all up in his damn face because he didn't have a mask on.
Oh, wow.
That was their, that was the narrative they tried to get going before they knew all of the video that we had. And we, back in cop school, I learned, let the crooks lock themselves into a lie. Let them lock themselves into their story, into their narrative, and then you hold them to it. Right? And they got locked into that narrative of just, oh, this violent black man. Well, the video doesn't show that. Right? The video shows us being treated just very poorly. Right? One of the white women that was there, she's a psychologist. Right? She said at the end, she said, Rashad, I've never been so abused in my life. I cannot believe the things these people were saying to me as I'm out there trying to put my body on the line for black, brown, indigenous children.
I mean, like, listen, let's stick on that for a second. Minneapolis has a private parent Facebook group that's in the thousands. If you were to go in there, so we sound dramatic when we say stuff like New Jane Crow or how racist it is, all that. We sound dramatic, right? And people don't know it's because we've been steeped in nonsense for so long and we've been gaslit so long that this is the way it comes out. You talk this way after you've been gaslit so long and you've seen the truth and you've been like, yeah, I'm not going to be the Negro peon in your situation anymore. I see how racist you guys are. In the secret Facebook group, and believe me, if you're listening to this, don't think that this is just us. You got a secret Facebook group of white parents near you too. I'm sure you do. If you live in any size city, you got that secret group where they trade stories about who they're going to take out and how they're going to take them out, or who should be listened to and who shouldn't. And people like Rashad and me in these Facebook groups or whatnot, there becomes like a purity test among the white women about how much solidarity you have with the white teachers, with the white women in the classroom. Are you fending off any attacks, any attempts at choice, or any attempts at charter schools or privatization? And they trade Diane Ravitch stories, and it becomes their little religion. So white women who are in that, who say, well, guys, I actually think that they might have a point that, their kids aren't doing so well in their schools. Attack. You must have bought the Koch brothers Kool-Aid and blah, blah, blah. And you watch a person who gets that over a period of time, and slowly they start melding into the good Stepford wife that they're supposed to be. Slowly they start changing. Well, maybe I am wrong. Maybe the Negroes should not have their own schools. Maybe they should not be able to determine where and how they go to school. Maybe they should stop complaining and just fight for more funding for us, for our pensions. Yeah, maybe they should comply. If they would just comply, their schools would get better. If only they had better parents. If only they had 2 white college-educated parents, their schools would get better, right? And it's such a weird cult. of thinking that you will be in a situation in a room like that, you, Rashad, or me, or someone else, where you will be talking to someone who, let me give you an example. You will be talking to someone who looks just like this, Denise Beck, the Minnesota Teachers Union president, or the person who's just like her, who runs the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers,
Greta
or whatever
Callahan.
district said, Greta Callahan. You will be speaking to this person with this exact same haircut and this exact same smile and these exact same eyes with this exact same lighting. You'll be talking to her in the thousands. And she will be telling you, I have license to erase your lived experience because I don't like your ideology, or who you work with, or who you're funded by, or your nonprofit, or your whatever. And you have to sit there and go, okay, so in your world, it really does make sense to you that a white woman would erase the lived experience and the voice of a black person because you don't like where I'm coming from? That makes sense to you? Oh, and by the way, you're carrying that exact same theory into classrooms every day?
Exactly.
That's what gives you a Miss Hanson. Somebody who tells you, I'm going to erase this poem that you want to write that tells your story. That's the new Jane Crow. That's what the new Jane Crow is. The new Jane Crow is white female power that erases the lived experiences of people who they want to tone police us. I don't like the way you said what you said.
Right.
I don't like your voice on it. I don't like your voicing. I don't like where you come from with it. I don't like your friends. I don't like who you've been talking to. Who you've been talking to that makes you think you should take money out of my pension, right? These are pensionistas. Let's be real clear about this.
Yeah.
These are pensionistas. Kids better have my money is their t-shirt. That's their t-shirt, right? So let's be real about what we're dealing with here. And this is why you start having a person like you, Rashad, and others that we know who feel the need to just speak plainly and just call it what it is. Stop doing the Negro peeing thing where you soften it. Well, maybe it's, it's just, it's not lack of understanding. Maybe we should just, work for common cause and blah, blah. No, your common cause always leads to you asking me to fight for your pensions. Exactly. That's what our common cause is. It's never you fighting for me for you to raise these damn reading rates and scores. Right.
It's like,
have you ever seen them march for that? Have you ever seen them march for better teachers or better teaching in instruction?
Never.
No.
I mean, and it's like they've done a hell of a job at tricking people, Chris. Right. I mean, there was an older black woman at that rally. She came up and she said, now I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I moved my grandkids up here. They go to school in St. Paul at one of those schools that you said 4 out of 5 kids can't read. Right. So it's just they trick folks and they hide the information, right? And I want to shout out to Christina Laster. I seen her commenting, "What's up, family?" And then L. Michelle Johnson are saying like that cult of thinking is pervasive. Like they are a cult, right? And we all, as parents, as people who care about children and want children to be able to read, we have to understand that these folks, they operate just like police unions. They operate just like a gang, like a mob. And if we don't address them accordingly, right, and think about things from a historical perspective, look at the patterns that are present, we're going to lose, right? Again, back to my message earlier, like we have to move beyond sharing our story, right? Decades upon decades, let us know that people don't care, right? The people in power, where decisions are made, they don't care about a story, right? They care about what? Power. So when we really think about more black children being able to read, Chris, we're talking about power. We're talking about exercising our rights, having that power as parents to make sure that shit happens. Now the systems know we have a lot of power as parents. We have to start to know, right? We have to understand, be in pursuit of justice, taking action, and making sure that things are changing, as my homie Christina would say, into perpetuity, right? If we're not thinking about changes that are going to impact our babies in a positive way long term, we're chasing our tails, right? At Minnesota Parent Union, our response to the educational crisis, Like our immediate response is to help families find better schools, is to close down bad schools. So we've got a couple district schools on our list as targets to shut down over the next 2 years. If you caught the news, Cedar Riverside Community School, low performing charter school, been failing to educate our babies for years, been ignoring families for 2-3 years. Our family advocates got partnered with those families and they shut that low performing school down. Right. So our immediate response to the crisis, let's get your kid into a better school where they have an opportunity. Right. The other part of what we do is making sure that we as parents who've been impacted by the disparities, low income white parents as well, that we have the information, the tools, the platform to go and make a difference. Right. Those folks that say, oh, well, you all are funded by these folks or you're funded by those. I will always make this clear. And if I'm lying, take your bread back. But we don't have one funder currently who has told us you have to do A, B, and C to get this money. You know how it goes up here? It goes like this. Here's what we do. And if you're aligned, it's obvious because you've opened your checkbook. Right? There's not one person that tells me, hey, your family advocate's got to do it this way or say it this way. I don't even tell my family advocates that, right? Everybody has a voice that's equal, that's strong. And if we do this together as a coalition of the willing, Minnesota will go from worse to start moving closer to first, right? But it's not going to be following the lead of the status quo. It's not going to be from sharing our stories to tug at the heartstrings. It's going to be from punching them in the budget, putting our feet down, being 10 toes down for our children as we move forward, shake these barbarians out of their seats so our children get what they need.
Man, that is powerful. That is like a sermon. That's a word.
I wore my church outfit today, Chris. That's how focused I am, man. The games, I don't even laugh that much, right? I don't even laugh that much these days because it's like we have to be laser focused, man.
Yeah, my laughter is a revolution. My laughter is I actually think the devil is funny. Other people are confounded by the devil. I think the devil is a comic. I think the devil, because half of what comes out the devil's mouth either is supposed to be funny to me. I'm supposed to laugh at it. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard is what I want to say half the time when I'm talking to people on the other side. Is like, I want to say, like, I know you're expecting me to engage with that as if that's a serious point, but are you serious about it? Because I worry about you if what just came out your mouth you're serious about. When I'm talking to the other side, I realize that the devil is always tricky. The devil is always trying to present you with ironies and double crossing and crosswords and a split tongue and two-edged swords. And you're supposed to be a fool. You're supposed to be like confounded by it. Like, well, damn, am I? I wonder if I am working for the Koch brothers. You know, I thought I was just like trying to get black people to read. But damn, you know, since you said it that way, since you put it that way, you know, as if someone somewhere is like came to me and said, Chris, I've got $1 gazillion billion. And here's a script you should read. And if you read this script, I'll give you $1 gazillion billion. And then I was just like, yeah, boss, that sounds good. That sounds real good. You know, I don't know what drama they have in their head that they think that makes a realistic play. But my response to it is, I'm fighting for the power of my people. You should be giving me money. Exactly. You should be writing a check with your little Cargill job, with your little Lake Harriet house, with your little, like, you know, $8 latte. You should be donating to me right now because you owe it to me because you've been invested in my oppression. Your pension is in my oppression. Oh, and by the way, let me not end without saying to my pensionistas, by the way, your pensions are invested in private prisons and child detention centers. Isn't that a little bit ironic? Anybody need receipts on that? Contact me. I'll send you the receipts, right? Your teachers are literally vested in the school to prison pipeline. They are retiring on money made from private prisons and child detention centers as an investment. Now check your local teacher's pension and you dig through the prospectus and find out where that money is. And then ask yourself, should a teacher who teaches in an urban school district really be literally vested in the imprisonment of the kids they're not teaching to read, which have way more statistical likelihood to enter one of those prisons because they're not learning to read? Is that not a vicious, ironic cycle? Man, the devil needs to stop playing.
Hey, God is the greatest. God is the greatest, right? And I just want to point out one thing on that school to prison pipeline, right? You have to really dig into their pensions, like you said, right? Because if you think about, let's say I'm a shareholder, I have stock in McDonald's, right? Well, I want McDonald's to be great. I want you to go get the McRib. I want you to get everything that we got there, right? So I can make money off of McDonald's. So if as a teachers union, we are invested in prisons, connect the dots, y'all.
Connect the dots. That's all I'm asking people to do is connect the dots. I do want to push back on you a little bit. The McRib is a fine sandwich, and I'm doing plant-based diet right now, so I can't have one.
And I don't have stock in McDonald's, so no.
Right.
But here's the thing with the dollars, Chris. It's like, think about how much money schools get. I mean, think about that 176 million for the black kids in Minneapolis public schools. I'm no mathematician, but I can almost guarantee you probably 100 times more once they're in prison. Right? Once they're in that facility.
At least triple. Right? At least triple once they get into the facility. Yes.
That's great for your pension.
And Rashad, we need to push this because I love how you say punch them in the budget, because we need to just ask questions, good questions. Like, here's a question. That's 170 million that we said for the school part of these kids. Now, how much of the budget also in that same zip code for that kid is for the social workers and the nonprofit industrial complex workers and the county workers and the family workers, the cash grant workers, the job counselor workers, blah, blah, blah. Start adding up all that money, and that child has a lot of money attached to them beyond the school money. So that child now all of a sudden, like all times in American history, the black person has been worth a lot of money. Why? Because let me ask questions. When the doctor writes me a prescription for Ritalin because my child is jumping up and down too much, and that the pen that he's writing the prescription with says Ritalin on the pen, who gave him that pen? And why is he writing so many of these prescriptions? And specifically to black parents who haven't had to ask the question, should my child be on this medication at all? Who's making that money? So now Big Pharma's making money, the doctor's making money, the teacher who referred you there is making money, the counselor is making money. So wait a second, who are these people? Are they all black people? Are they all the ones benefiting off of this black child having these prescriptions and being in these underperforming schools? No. Okay, so this sounds like an industry.
Right.
This sounds like our black child's an industry. Oh, is it our industry? It's not our industry, right?
No.
The black child's a product. You think you're getting education for free, just like you think you're getting Google products for free. No, you are the product. When you get something for free, you're the product. You're the thing people making money off of. Your punch them in the budget is probably the smartest thing I'm going to hear this week, this month, this year.
I'll give a shout out to my teammate Jennifer for that one.
Jennifer, you're doing the damn thing.
Everybody's always telling me some good shit to say. Most of the time I forget it, but that one stuck with me. You know what I mean?
Well, I want people to know how they can find
into perpetuity. I got a lot of smart folks around me, Chris, including yourself. So
you have always done smart things. You've always been fearless, been the one to jump out there for our people in ways in which that put you out on Front Street in ways that I don't think everybody's ready for. So I appreciate it. Always have. Watch you, Nakima, and others in our circle over years have to be the ones to call the question, because none of our so-called representatives are ever calling the questions where they need to. I want people to be able to find you. The Minnesota Parent Union is the organization that Rashad leads. He is working on more than one issue. We talked about a little bit today, just about needing to think very specifically and surgically about how we exist in schools. But you're also pushing things like the Page Amendment, which is a constitutional amendment to guarantee a quality education in the state. Y'all got anything else going on that you want people to know about?
We got Page Amendment. We got a bunch of stuff, right? Once we get to what we got through, hey, Miss Sarah, appreciate you too. I love you. We got a bunch of stuff going on, man. We got Page amendment, regular session just came to an end. There's a special session starting up in June. Maybe we can see what gets a little action there. But with the Page amendment, right, the big thing this summer, and we're going to be going all around the state of Minnesota, is for parents to identify and start to talk about what does quality education look like, right? In the Page amendment, we know what quality education is, right? If you read that language in there, fully prepares our children to be productive members. But what does quality look like? That's something that we're going to tackle all summer. So by the time we get to next session, we're ready to knock that teachers union out, right? They're a blocker on the Page amendment. So again, it's about getting informed, pushing beyond, sharing our stories and really being able to show up in a way that gets things done. We've got our coalition, special ed coalition, school board coalition. All of our coalitions are up and running so folks can tap into that. We're trying to be productive, man. We're just trying to be productive. It's easy to sort of just be blowing in the wind. And that's happened to some folks, right? Sometimes that wind gets to blowing hard and, you look around and the circle's a little smaller. But it's like, we have to just stay focused, which is what we're doing. Really, it's enrollment season for us, right? Families don't always start to enroll into schools during that, January, February time. So Mustafa and Fatoon, they're helping parents at Cedar Riverside. I think there's about 20 families left or 20 children left that we still have to find schools for. And that school would be completely shut down after June 30th. So imagine this, right? Just a little shout out to our team and the parents that we partner with. You could probably find this quoted somewhere, but I said, hey, within our first 2 years, we'll shut down a low performing school. And that happened, right? So shout out to the parents over there at Cedar Riverside. Shout out to our team. What else we got going on, Chris? We've been so productive that
you're starting the real revolution,
right?
You're starting the real revolution,
right?
Yeah.
I haven't been able to do Dark Side of Education show, so I'm really looking forward to get back and doing that this Sunday.
Yes.
American Rescue Plan dollars are coming in, flowing into towns. We got to make sure that parents get that money, right? We got to make sure that money follows our children. So there's a bunch going on, right? But I always remember, one of my mentors, Al Fan, my old executive director at Comeback, he always said, hey, just focus on a few things, right?
That's right.
So we're keeping that laser focus. But again, we know there's so much happening that we're just trying to stay nimble. We're continuing to grow our membership. We're up past 1,500 now, and that's 1,500 in one state. I know some organizations, they've got, a whole nation to cover, and they ain't nowhere close to 1,500. So we're just staying focused, not worrying about the divide and conquer that's happening from some folks at the national level, even some folks locally. We're plowing through that, getting stronger, growing stronger, making sure shit changes, right? We ain't here to just be a part of the nonprofit industrial complex, right? My goal, my daughter's 13. She told me the other day after seeing Nakeem on TV, she said, hey, I know what I want to be. I want to be an attorney now. So that's her focus. My dream for myself is in about 10 or 15 years, I'll be able to just live in the woods. You know what I mean? It doesn't cost much to do that, live off the land.
I just want you to know you could do that now.
Well, I could.
I love being away. I'll just put it this way. Minneapolis ground me to the point where it was like, for my sanity, I was like, what people like me have done for a million years is get out the city and get to a place where you have some nature and you have some trees and shit, and you have a little bit of space, a little bit of breathing room. Ain't got
gunshots flying around all night and shit.
And you don't have like the weird politics of paying too much for getting too little, right? Like you pay too much to the cost of living in a toxic city. You think, oh, we got great food and we got great coffee and we got great all this stuff. And you also have a lot of a great expensive toxicity that you don't have when you get your mind out of the city. But I appreciate what you do. I appreciate what Nakima does. I appreciate what we have, like, Sarah, I love you too. I see her in the comments here. The people who come here every day, like you have people that would like really enjoy watching your Sunday broadcast, because with all the feedback I've ever gotten, is like Rashad just keeps it so real that I need that for my soul. Like they need to hear it from people. Like people need permission to hear to people like you who just speak plainly. So you got to come back to that.
We're going to get that popping again on Sunday, 10 a.m. Central Time. Dark Side of Education returns.
Do it.
It's going to be popping, right? We got a lot to talk about, and it's all focused on that action. You know what I mean? One other thing I forgot to point out, two things here. I want to send my condolences publicly to Miss Gwen Samuel, who lost her son. Been thinking about you. Got some flowers heading your way. So much love to you, Miss Gwen. In 2 weeks, and I will get the Zoom link out and we'll get it out. But in 2 weeks, we're going to have a nationwide conversation with parents from around the country to see how folks are feeling about the funding, the outcomes in their districts, and see what type of action folks are down for. So I'll talk more about that on Sunday, 10 a.m. Dark Side of Education. Appreciate you bringing me on this morning, Chris.
No, come back anytime. Let's keep talking. I think like you're doing work in which it leads. You're the leader. Like you're leading work that is it's smart, it's focused, it's tactical. And I think that gives it all of those things together. I think is the best chance of a win. Like we're going to win something. We are so tired of not winning. Like we're so tired. We just need a couple of people to win on something, to give us hope that like it could be done, or else we don't want to show up.
Is we've got the best team of family advocates. We've got the strongest parents who are down for the cause. We've got a bunch of leaders, right? Yes. I might be the loudest, the one that has to kick down the door. But going back to my point about living in the woods, I was really only saying that to say this. Until I have that land in the woods, my main priority outside of my baby girl, Shia, is to make sure more children in Minnesota have the same opportunity that my baby has. She can read, she can do math, she can think critically, you know? So it's just like, we're going to go hard until we can't go no more. But I'll tell folks, right, if that funding's coming in, keep that funding coming in. We'll keep this train moving. If you didn't get on the last stop, the train's going. We ain't waiting for nobody.
That's right.
But there'll be another stop for folks to hop on, right? Catch up.
All right, y'all. Well, appreciate you, Rashad. Please come back again to all my morning crew who come and hang with us. Mama Toya, L. Michelle Johnson, Sherry Lucas Hall, the whole crew. I saw Sarah. Thank you for coming this morning. Love you and appreciate you. All our folks that are doing the work. Rashad mentioned Gwen Samuel, who has had another tragic loss in her life. But Gwen, the thing about Gwen and so many of the other names that I just called, tireless, fearless, consistent over a long number of years, showing up for our children, raising these issues that we're raising right now, not getting the big grant, not getting the big support, whatever, doing it on a shoestring out of just pure straight up love and hope for children and for young people. And that is why it requires people like me and Rashad and others, when we see folks like that get attacked and have the Minnesota Nice crew, the Miss Hansons of the world try and second guess why you're doing what you're doing when you're only out here fighting for your babies with blood, sweat, and tears. It's a no-go, ma'am. It's a no for me. It's a no. We're not doing that. We're not going to participate. We're not going to allow it. You're not going to do it to us. You're not going to erase any of us. You're not going to erase our lived experience, our stories, our motivations, because your motivations, this is what the devil does to you. Your motivations are the ones that should be suspect.
Right.
Your motivations. Yeah. So see how that works? See how projection works? See how you project onto us the questions you should be asking yourself, right? I'm
gonna project this question onto you, Chris. And I should be asking myself this, right? You named some fabulous people there, right?
Right.
I mentioned Christina Laster earlier. You got Gwen, you got Miss Sarah. I mean, could you imagine? And I think this will happen one day, but could you imagine when all of us are on the same train, pushing in the same direction, making shit happen all around this country, right? That day is coming, because you mentioned some bold people.
Right.
Right.
And bold people who are always under attack.
Yeah.
Who are always under attack.
Got to be a coalition of the willing. You know, there's people out there that can are white passing, but can talk, you know, maybe speak a different language or, you know, steal people's ideas and things like that. So it's like, for me, if we're talking about justice for our babies, it's about that coalition of the willing, y'all. And again, we're going to have that
And examples of
nationwide
winning.
call.
That's to
in
me
2
examples
weeks.
of winning. People need to see
We got to win.
some wins, or else they're not going to believe in it at all. So,
We got to win.
all right, y'all. Well, appreciate everybody. We'll be back again tomorrow. We'll have an important topic for you. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is yet, but tune in tomorrow, 9 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to have another conversation. Thank you all.